So you're curious about BERT, this rock star of natural language processing everyone keeps talking about.
It's really lived up to the hype.
To say the least, we're talking about a whole new level of how computers understand what we humans are saying, not just like processing individual words. Ready to deep dive into why BERT's such a game changer.
Definitely. What's really cool about BERT is that it's not just an upgrade, It really kind of shifted the whole playing field.
Yeah.
Before BERT, we had models like Elmo and OpenAI GPT, which were good, but
They had their limitations.
they did. They kind of struggled with context, especially that reading between the lines thing that humans do naturally.
Okay, break that down for me. How does BERT read between the lines better than its predecessors?
Imagine reading a sentence where you don't just go from left to right. Like, you think about how each word impacts the words around it, even if they're, not right next to each other.
Yeah.
That's bidirectionality. And it's basically BERT's secret weapon.
So it's like BERT is catching the nuances of a conversation, not just the individual words.
Exactly.
That's pretty impressive.
It's really revolutionized the field.
What does BERT even stand for?
BERT stands for Bidirectional Encoder Representations from Transformers.
Catchy.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but each word is a clue to how it works.
Okay.
We've covered bidirectional.
Right.
Now let's look at encoder. Essentially, BERT translates human language into something computers can actually process. Like, imagine compressing a really complex idea into, like, a code.
So kind of like giving the computer the gist of it, but in a way it can actually, like, digest.
Yeah, exactly.
What about representations? That sounds pretty abstract.
It is a little bit abstract,
Yeah.
but it's at the core of how BERT gets so smart, See, BERT doesn't just memorize definitions. It creates these maps,
Okay.
these representations of words and sentences. And these maps capture not just what words mean, but how they relate to all the other words around them.
So it's more like a web of meaning than a dictionary.
Exactly.
It's building connections between everything.
Exactly. And the transformers part, that's the engine that makes this whole thing tick. It's a specific type of neural network that's super efficient at processing tons of information at once. And
Attractive at all.
and recognizing those long-range relationships between words.
It sounds like the Transformers part is key to unlocking that contextual understanding we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is where things get truly fascinating. To grasp how revolutionary this is, let's look at a simple example from the research.
Okay, love a good example.
Imagine the sentence. The man went to the mask to buy a gallon of milk. What do you think BERT would predict for mask?
Well, knowing we need milk, I'd say store. It just makes sense.
Right. Now, older models stuck in that left-to-right mindset might struggle. They wouldn't necessarily connect to buy milk with store because that information comes later.
Interesting.
BERT, however, gets it instantly.
That's wild. It's almost like BERT is like thinking like a human, considering the entire sentence to find the missing piece. How does it get so smart?
Well, it's all about the training. And BERT's training regimen, let's just say it's intense. It involves two clever tasks: mask language model and next sentence prediction.
Okay, so BERT's training sounds like it's more than just memorizing vocabulary.
It's definitely next level stuff.
What are these masked language model and next sent prediction tasks all about?
Right. So think of mask language model, or MLM for short, like a giant game of fill in the blanks.
Okay.
BERT is fed a massive amount of text, but with random words or even parts of words hidden. Like, imagine those redacted documents you see in spy movies. BERT's job is to figure out what those missing words are, just based on the words around them.
Oh, interesting.
And it does this with amazing accuracy, which kind of forces it to learn all those subtle ways words interact and create meaning.
That's a clever way to train a model. But what about this next sentence prediction thing?
So that's where things get really, really interesting. With next sentence prediction, or NSP, we're essentially testing BERT's ability to, understand the relationships between sentences.
Okay.
Imagine giving it two sentences and asking, do these make sense together? Do they follow each other logically?
So it's like teaching BERT to understand the flow of, like, a story or a conversation.
Precisely. It's about understanding that coherence, like how ideas connect across sentences, which, by the way, is super crucial for tasks like summarizing text or answering those questions where the answer might be spread across multiple sentences,
Yeah. This is starting to paint a really clear picture of how BERT goes beyond just understanding individual words. It's like it's learning to think about language the way humans do.
And that's exactly what makes BERT so powerful. It's not just about understanding words in isolation. It's about grasping that whole web of relationships that gives language its true meaning.
And this all links back to those amazing results you mentioned earlier, right?
Mhm.
What's that benchmark called again? The one where it, like, blew everything else out of the water?
You're talking about the GLUE benchmark,
GLUU.
General Language Understanding Evaluation. Think of it as like the Olympics for language model.
Okay, so how did Bert do in these Olympics?
BERT aced it. Like, to say it aced it would be an understatement.
Wow.
It absolutely crushed the competition,
Yeah.
achieving those state-of-the-art results on a whole range of tasks. Sentiment analysis, question answering, natural language inference, you name it. BERT excelled at it.
That's seriously impressive. But let's get real world here for a second.
Okay.
How does Bert actually impact, like, our everyday lives?
That's the really exciting part. BERT is already making waves in ways you might not even realize.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Remember those frustrating times you've spent wrestling with search engines?
Ugh, don't remind me.
Trying to find exactly what you're looking for, but it's like,
Yeah, it can feel like you're speaking a different language sometimes.
exactly. That's where BERT comes in. It's being incorporated into search engines like Google to help them understand the intent behind your searches, not just the keywords, so you get more relevant results faster.
Okay, that's a game changer right there. No more, like, endless scrolling through irrelevant links. What else?
BERT is also revolutionizing the world of chatbots and virtual assistants. Imagine interacting with a chatbot that actually, like, understands your questions and provides genuinely helpful responses, almost as if you were talking to, an actual human.
That would be amazing. No more robotic customer service calls that leave you more frustrated than when you started.
Exactly. And it's not just about convenience either. BERT is also being used to improve language translation.
It's true. Language barriers can be, like, a huge obstacle.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're talking about bridging cultures, revolutionizing communication. It's pretty huge.
It's like Bert is taking us closer to that, like, sci-fi dream of a universal translator, right?
It really is. And it's not just those improvements. Remember those benchmarks I mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
BERT's success on Squad is it's really telling.
Refresh my memory, squad.
Right, the Stanford question answering data set. Basically, it tests how well these models can, like, answer questions from a given text. Like, imagine reading comprehension on steroids.
Okay.
And BERT didn't just break records on Squad 1.1, it totally aced the even harder Squad 2.0.
Okay, and what makes 2.0 so tough?
Well, sometimes the answer isn't even in the text.
Oh, well.
It's like, imagine being asked a trick question.
Right.
BERT actually has to figure out when to say, I don't know, which, by the way, is a very human skill.
That's true. So it's not just about finding information, but, like, knowing what you don't know. That's really impressive.
Exactly. And then there's WAG situations with adversarial generations. BERT actually outperformed other models in understanding common sense reasoning, which is something AI has traditionally struggled with.
So, like, figuring out what should happen next in a story, even if the story doesn't directly say it.
Exactly. And BERT's ability to make those, like, leaps in logic, that's a huge step forward.
I mean, this whole deep dive has been a serious eye-opener. It sounds like Bert isn't just another, like, step forward, but a whole different league of language understanding.
I'd agree with that. BERT's capacity to, like, learn in this deep, nuanced, bidirectional way, it's honestly opened up a universe of possibilities that we're, like, only just starting to explore.
So where do we go from here? What's, like, the next frontier in this field?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, BERT has set the bar incredibly high, but imagine, like, computers that can not only understand our words, but the emotions behind them, the humor, all those subtle cues that we convey through language.
Computers that get sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would be revolutionary.
Oh, right. And think about the creative potential. Could a machine ever compose poetry that, really moves us?
Mhm.
Or write a novel that truly captures the human experience? These are questions we're, like, really forced to ask now.
Wow. This deep dive has given me a lot to think about. BERT is clearly more than just an algorithm. It's a signpost to a future where that line between human and machine language might actually start to disappear completely.
And who knows, maybe you, our listener, will be the one to, take us even further down this path of discovery. The future of language is wide open.